o'clock. Am I right? Are we missing anybody?
No. Right.
Yep. Okay, so I will call the meeting to order. Are there any preliminary matters, either Julie or Sam, to review before we get started?
No, I don't think so. I was going to jump off if that's okay with you guys. And I just want to remind Sam to just read the notification to everyone that you guys are being recorded by RCTV and will be live streamed on YouTube and may also be on TV.
Got it.
Great. Julie, thank you.
No problem. Have a great evening, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. So go ahead, Sam, if you want.
I don't have the text in front of me, but the RCTV Studios is recording the meeting. They decide whether or not to broadcast it, so we don't have any control over that. And the town hall often will post the meetings on YouTube after the fact so that the public can check them out. So everyone's aware, and to just follow courtesy and taking turns, and we'll let Jonathan run things from now on.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I should also mention I do have the little cheat sheet that Julie provided too. So I think you hit everything we need to hit. The call-in number and the whatever the other invite information is on our agenda, and it's on the website as well. People can send a message to Sam, who is administering the meeting, via the chat room, but that should only be for administrative questions and not a back and forth banter. It is part of the public record. I don't think anybody is muted. Is that correct? Just want to make sure that Chris and Sue are not muted.
Hello.
Yep, can you hear us?
Okay, good, great. As I think probably also mentioned to them, this is fairly informal, but we do try to maintain some structure. So I'll try to manage the meeting. I mean, people can, because nobody will be muted, and as Sam indicated, we do want to sort of respect each other, speak one at a time. It's probably best to either raise your hand through the participant screen in the Zoom window, or just raise your hand and we'll recognize you when you want to speak. I'll just do some introductions, and then we'll sort of get off to the main part of the meeting. And there really is only one agenda item for tonight, and it is to discuss 420 Franklin Street. And just by way of introduction, I think everybody is aware 420 Franklin Street is obviously an important structure, a historic structure that's on our inventory, and it is also covered by a preservation restriction agreement, which everybody now has. It had recently been brought to our attention that there had been some work done on the home. I believe the D'Ambrosios have owned it since 2012. Although I'll point out, thank you, I'll just point out tangentially that every time, and I guess you folks, Chris and Sue, if I may I be that informal and call you Chris and Sue? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'll do introductions for us in 1 second. The preservation restriction agreement does indicate that whenever the property is sold, that the seller of the property, you folks, should notify us that it is being sold, and we will have an opportunity to review the provisions of the preservation restriction agreement with the buyers. I can also point out that there is an opportunity for the commission to also do an inspection, and the commission should be inspecting at least every 5 years, which I know we have not done, but we should probably pay more attention to that. In any event, back to the matter at hand. It was brought to our attention that some maintenance or repair work had been done on the property. Specifically, that's important for us is that there were some shingles that were installed. We can get at the details. I know at least they were installed on the addition. I'm not sure whether or not the new shingles were also installed on the older 2.5-story house portion of the property. And I believe they are cedar shingles. We'll get at that as well. And also that part of the house has been painted white. It was previously, as I'm sure most people know, red. In addition to that, we became aware that there were some replacement windows that were in the process of being installed. And this is all covered, and I'm going to turn to the preservation restriction agreement, which I know several of us, including Virginia and I, have talked with Chris and Sue about this, that the preservation restriction agreement has some provisions. It's similar in most respects to the other preservation restriction agreements that we have, but it is a little bit different. It is a little bit more formally written because, as I understand it, at the time it was agreed upon. The Mass Historical Commission was also involved, and there were apparently outside counsel. I don't know who brought them in, but were also involved in writing it. So it's a little bit more cumbersome to read and understand. But the gist of it is, as with all of these, is that there are certain maintenance and repair work that can be done by the homeowners without the prior notification or approval from the Historical Commission. And then there are other repairs and maintenance that do require the prior notification and approval of the Historical Commission. That's covered by Section 4 of the, oh, Sam just went to it. So let's just take a look at Section 4, if you would. I take it that's you, Sam, that's doing that. Okay. Okay, right there, I guess. This is the section that outlines those that maintenance and repair that does require the prior approval and notification of the Historical Commission. And I'm looking at B, which is the operative provisions, which say that the right to maintain and repair is strictly according to the Secretary's standards, the Secretary of Interior. It then says, as used in the subparagraph, the right to maintain and repair shall mean the use by the grantor, the homeowners, of in-kind materials and colors applied with workmanship comparable to that which was used in the construction or application of those materials being repaired. And that maintenance and repair can be done without the approval of the Historical Commission. However, it goes on to talk about the right to maintain and repair as used in this subparagraph shall not include the right to make changes in appearance, materials, and workmanship without the prior approval of the grantee in accordance with the preceding provisions. In this particular case, I would point out that and we'll get at this when we talk about it, the cedar shingles, which have been replaced, are in kind. However, they are a different color. So therefore, I do believe that that falls within this, the purview of the requiring the prior approval of the Historical Commission. And equally important, the replacement windows are, although they are, I believe, similar, and we'll get at that as well, they are different in material from what was there before. So again, they also are subject to the prior notification and approval of the Historical Commission. And that's why we're here, to discuss those items and to either approve or to not approve. Before we get to that, I just want to also point out that the Preservation Restriction Agreement in a preceding section, I believe it's 3.1, Sam, does require that notification be made to the Historical Commission not less than 30 days in advance of the repair or maintenance, and it should be in writing. And as it says in that first paragraph, 3.1, the notice shall describe the nature, scope, design, location, timetable, and any other material aspect of the proposed activity in sufficient detail to permit the Historical Commission to make an informed judgment, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, the Historical Commission can only grant its approval by a majority of the members present, and that approval from us will have to be in writing, as will any disapproval if that's the case. I bring that up because I wanted to ask Chris and Sue. I know we had an initial conversation about this kicked off because it was brought to our attention before any written notification was provided, and we did agree to have this meeting as quickly as possible. And we met with Chris and Sue on Tuesday. But I did ask if they would comply with this requirement to provide us something in writing, and I was happy to take it by email, even though the agreement requires it by mail, certified mail, or hand delivered. And I also asked if they could provide some information about the materials, particularly with regard to the windows, but I presume also with regard to the shingles. Now, I obviously didn't see that, and I just want to give Chris and Sue an opportunity to address that. And I guess at this point, then I'll turn it to, well, actually, before I turn it to you guys, Chris and Sue, and I'm remiss, I'm sorry, I should have introduced all of us to each other. Obviously, we all know that that's Chris and Sue D'Ambrosio. Why don't we start with introducing ourselves? And I, of course, am Jonathan Barnes. I'm the chair of the commission at this point. I'm going to go in the order that I have it listed, so it may be a little different than what you see. But Sam, would you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Samantha Couture. I'm a member of the commission and just in charge of putting stuff up on the Zoom if we need to look at anything.
Thanks. Charlene?
I'm Charlene Reynolds Santo, a member of the Historical Commission.
Thank you. And Jack? I see Jack's image. Can you hear us, Jack?
Yeah, I'm Jack Williams. I'm the treasurer of the Historical Commission.
Thanks, Jack. Amelia?
And I'm Amelia Devon Friedman. I'm the secretary.
Okay. Virginia?
I'm Virginia Adams, and I'm an associate member of the Historical Commission.
Thank you. And Pino?
Hi, I'm Pino Durazio. I'm an associate member of the Historical Commission.
Associate member, and he is not here this evening. So now, why don't I turn it to you guys to, I guess, if you could give us an explanation about my comment about the notice and the materials, and then also just describe, if you will, the maintenance and repair work that you're proposing.
Yeah, thank you. Not only did I reply to you that evening, I emailed you last evening to see if you got the reply. So something's wrong.
Interesting. What email address did you send it to?
I sent it to the one that sent out the Zoom invite.
That's funny. I didn't check it, but I will check it as soon as I can figure out how to minimize this screen.
You haven't checked that email address?
Oh, I have. I've checked it repeatedly, but
okay.
I didn't see anything. So something is awry.
Okay, because I can just resend it right now if I can find
Wait,
it.
I don't understand. Did he not get the original email
You
from the
didn't
other
get
night?
the email that you and I put together.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry about that. No, I did not get
that's
that.
fine.
Okay. So, do you want to read it to him?
It's going to take me a second to find it.
Okay. So, I don't know if you ever driven by the house sort of, but when we bought the house 8 years ago, the tiles were already, the shingles outside were already, the paint was flaking. Some of them were just falling off. They were, a lot of them were rotted, chipped, whatever. So we did decide that we needed to replace them. Just on the, we didn't do any on the 2-story, it's called the half house section of the house, just the carriage house section, the long 1-story section. And we had planned to paint it, but then we liked the look of the natural shingles so much that we just decided not to paint it. They are cedar. They're, I forget the name of the company, but they are all cedar wood shingles. So it's not vinyl or anything that wouldn't have been, doesn't keep with the integrity of the house. The windows, our old windows, I wish I had taken more close-up pictures of them, but they were in complete, they were molding, they were painted shut, they were broken, they smelled like if it rained or snowed out, you could smell the rot. So we have never had, since we've moved in, we've never been able to open even one window in the house. None of the windows open. The outside of the windows had a aluminum frame
For storm window.
for storm windows. So I mean, I don't know, Jonathan and Virginia, I know you saw it the other day. I actually think we've improved the look of the outside of the house since taking off that aluminum frame, at least now it looks a little more historic. I don't know when the aluminum frames were put on. There is a little bit of painting that needs to be done now that they took the aluminum frame off the outside. And once that's painted, it will look a lot nicer, obviously. What else? Is there anything?
Do you want us, oh, you dress the shingles?
Oh, yeah, actually, so the windows, I wanted to replace for many years. We finally.
I held her off as long as
Yeah, I'm always wanting to fix everything. We are very, very proud to own a historic house where we love the fact that it's 300 years old. We don't want to change it. We don't want to turn it into one of the, millions of other houses in this town. We want it to, maintain its historic integrity. And so when we chose the windows, of course, most builders were trying to talk us into just getting windows with that you glue the grill on the inside of the window and there's nothing on the outside. I hate that look. So I tried very hard to find windows that would have the grill on the inside and the outside. They're not top of the line expensive like I wanted to do.
Just tried that too.
But they are pretty cool. Going with Harvey windows instead of Anderson. Anderson was the closest so we could get to historic, to the complete. But these are actually, I compared them and they're actually.
We have a picture
pretty
of,
darn
because
close.
as you know, they did a couple upstairs before you had arrived and we asked them to stop. So we had the meeting clip.
Right.
I can
right.
show you.
How do we do?
Well, I
we
can
have a
show.
photo. I don't know if I can we share a screen and pull it up?
Yeah, no, we don't
No,
have to have it download. So actually, let me just show you a before picture. Let me see, where am I? This is a before picture with the aluminum trim on it. I don't know if you can see that.
That's a storm, you mean, on the outside?
Yeah, the storm window is aluminum. The sill is rotted and flaking. Actual
So when
window.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you. When you, I very much appreciate you showing us the pictures, but when you put the camera up there, I can see it, but then I lose your audio, and I assume everybody else does. So. Oh,
I'm sorry. Okay. So when the picture that I'm about to show you shows how I think they're called mullions.
Muntins, I think.
Not minions.
Muntins,
mullions
no?
Are flaking. Muntins. That's
yes.
It. Yes. Are flaking and molded and years and years of paint on them. I have a feeling these were probably replaced.
I got to tell you again, you're blocking the audio.
Oh, sorry. I think they were probably replaced in the 60s or 70s was probably the last time the windows were touched. They were actually, the upstairs windows were broken. We were missing glass in the attic and missing glass in my son's room.
I just want to interject while you're talking. I think that because I think it's important. You made the comment that they were replaced in the 60s. I don't know the date in Virginia, maybe you do, but it is important to at least establish that the windows that were there before you folks moved in, that you are in the process or seeking to replace, are not the original windows. They are, in fact, replacement windows. You confirm that, Virginia, as well?
Yes, because if they were windows from the first period house, they would not be double hung or anything like that. And I did have a quick question. Do the replacement windows, particularly on the second floor, have weights in them, or do they? That's the question.
The original ones did not have the weight in the rope. Still,
okay.
We actually had a house up by the high school when we first moved to Reading that did have those original rope and weighted windows. So I do know what you're talking about. No, these did not.
Okay.
Or do not. Yeah.
So that more or less confirms the fact that they were replacement windows.
Right. And the glass probably would have been wavy if it was because, you know,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been, and I would have loved that, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I just wanted everybody to know that the windows that you are seeking to replace are not by any stretch of the imagination original windows. Okay, I'm
Correct.
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. So you
Before
were
you go,
showing us the
Jonathan.
picture. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if, can we share the picture? I have it on my computer. Is it easy to share so they all see it?
Is it
I think
open?
you can share the screen, but I should also have pointed
Sure.
out that
No,
before we
no.
lost Julie, that we're kind of novices at administering our own Zoom meetings, but let's give it a try.
Just
Okay.
realized I emailed myself the reply.
I'm glad to hear
My
that.
apologies. I just cut and pasted it and resent it to you this time.
That's
like
great.
what I
That's
would
great.
do. I'm
And then I
surprised.
asked myself, did you get the email?
Okay, so I'm going to share a screen. Let me just
ahead.
bear with me. Share screen. Where is it?
Um,
Do you have it open already?
I don't have it.
Oh, that's why. Okay. I do this all day, every day with my students. No, with kindergarten through 5th grade. But there you go. Okay, so if that's open. Oh, okay, so share.
Oh, great. Okay.
You can see
Can you
that?
see that?
Yes.
Okay, I see if I can zoom.
No, go ahead.
So the bottom windows are
Have not been replaced.
have not been replaced.
Yep.
The top have.
Okay. All of them. Those three there.
Yes. I'm trying to do. You really can't tell a diff. I mean, I think they're a good match.
Keep in mind, the bottom windows are longer than the top windows, but
Yeah, and I guess I would also just want to ask while you're describing that to both of you, I do notice, and Virginia, maybe you can help me out, or Charlene, I did notice that the bottom windows are 9/9 panes.
Right.
And I don't know, now that you've mentioned that these three are all 6/6, was that what was there before, even though they were replacements?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you asking if
Before you installed these three, were the windows that were there before also 6/6?
they
Yes.
look exactly the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And trust me, although we didn't seek permission, and that's our fault, we were very cognizant of not changing. 'Cause we're very proud to be here, but not changing the appearance or the.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I had a couple of decorator friends of mine trying to convince me to go with black window panes, which is all the rage now. And I said, I can't. That's not period correct. That's not what would have been. I don't think that's what would have been there. I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
Isn't
Okay.
the name of the white, colonial white or something?
I had a question about the windows that you put in. What are they made from?
They are vinyl clad, I believe, right?
No.
They're right here. They're not completely vinyl. I think they're vinyl clad, vinyl over wood on
Okay.
the outside.
And then do you have wood on the inside?
In the inside, yes. Hold
Neat.
on, let me try to get out of this picture. Stop share. Hold on.
Chris?
Are we back?
Yes, we are back.
Okay.
When you said, I would appreciate it if you haven't already, if you would send that information. And does it have some of the information, for example, that Sam is asking about the composition of the windows also, that you did email?
Not sure I went into specifics on that. You should have that by now.
Okay, I'm just checking. And
I think I mentioned that they were cedar shingles.
yes, you did mention that. Yes.
Let me see what it says, exactly what they are.
I haven't gotten it yet, but
Did I just send it? I sent it to myself again.
What is going on with you? That is so something I would do, and he would get so upset with me.
Okay, good night, everyone. All right. I
And they say the
promise
third time's the charm, so.
you got it this time.
It's not like you.
Oh,
I know.
I did get it. I did get it.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah, that's the one we wrote a couple days ago?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
oh, goodness. All right.
So let's see. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Virginia has a question.
Virginia has her hand up.
Yeah, I have the email on the screen. So go ahead, Virginia. Thank you.
Well, I was going back to old times, and if we're historic, do you think we should tie a tin can to a long string and run it from Franklin Street to your house?
Yeah,
There probably is one. We found a lot of interesting things in this house.
Yeah, apparently I run it to the wrong house.
I just forwarded that email to the rest of our group, so everybody should get that. And I don't believe that it had any attachments at all, Chris. So
No.
it does have the narrative, and you did explain it. I actually haven't read it yet, but okay. So let's keep going, I guess, with the discussion if we can. So what I guess to follow up on Sam's question, what I would at least like to inquire about is that I expect that they probably are vinyl clad on the outside, but I would be curious to know whether they are wood on the inside or actually also vinyl clad on the
I
inside.
think they're vinyl clad. They're not, we
not
have
positive.
a door, like a French door that is definitely wood, like it's coated. No, I guess that's vinyl clad too. It's like a coated, you can paint it. It's paintable.
Yeah, but it's not wood.
Plastic. It's not plastic.
Yeah. It's some
not
type of composite.
Not
No,
those.
no, no. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, they're like, I'd say, I don't know. They're
Okay,
not
They're
wood.
not wood.
It's not wood. Yeah, okay. I was just curious about that. Like, I know I replaced all of my windows in my house as well, and they are they're vinyl clad on the outside, but they are in fact wood. We stained them on the inside. So just so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Okay. Did you folks, Virginia, hang on for 1 second.
Mhm.
Did you folks, I'm perfectly happy, I guess, to have this be a back and forth, but I do want to at least give Chris and Sue an opportunity if they want to present anything more information to us, to just generally do that, and then we can ask questions afterwards. If you had any more information that you wanted to impart to us.
No,
I don't think we're here to answer questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever questions you have.
Okay, Virginia.
Could I give a little background for the commission members, please? And then my question is going to be, how many windows are we talking about in the house? And the lower floor is 9/6. But anyways, I'd like to give a little history, and Charlene may know some of this as well. But this house came under the demolition delay when the commission had a 12-month delay. And we worked tirelessly to get a preservation restriction on it. And some of the means we used in that period of time was that we with the cooperation of the owner, we advertised in national magazines. One of our members made a video explaining the historic features of the house, and that video was on RCTV.
I think we've actually seen that.
No, not really.
I have. He pointed out the craftsmanship of the beam.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Good. We did work with the Conservation Commission because there was a pond on the property that the previous owner had made. And the original plan was to tear down the half house and build 3 houses in its place. And we did a lot of negotiating, and Conservation Commission helped us to work through the pond issue. And it ultimately ended up that we kept the house intact, and they only were allowed to build 1 other new house. But the interesting thing I always found that this is one of the few historic homesteads in Massachusetts, because it had continuous ownership for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had nominated it for that. And there's 1 other house in Reading that the commission nominated as well. And they're called historic homesteads. We also had Boston University do an intern study on the property when it was vacant, and they were trying to determine the age of the house via the construction techniques. And we found some interesting things, but no one could really peg it to 1711. So, but often that's the case, you can't do it. So we really have a lot invested in this house, and that's why we went ahead with the preservation restrictions. And they are rather lengthy, perhaps cumbersome, but I think it's something that the commission members must go through and assess where we are with it right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. Yes, Amelia.
Can you talk to us about the color? Your decision to change the color?
So it was, I guess originally for many years it was brown or natural shingle that had aged. Then I'm not sure when it turned red, but it's been red for a long, long time. I just don't like the red. They like it. I just was so sick of the red. So we actually had picked out, we had looked at historical colors. I had hired a Benjamin Moore with me on picking out new colors for it, including red. We actually did look at red, some other shades of red. So I had finally picked out a goldenrod color, and he hates when I tell people this, but he's slightly colorblind. So the sample board that I got with this beautiful goldenrod that everybody said, oh, I love that, I love that. He thought was, sorry, Chris, puke green. He said, I don't like the puke green one. And I said, that's not green. He said, that is puke green. I said, no, it's gold. It's like a golden yellow. Nope. So
Always pointing out my fault.
I'm sorry, but as much as I loved it and everybody that saw it was like, oh, that's so pretty. It looks so, old fashioned, colonial, whatever. I couldn't have him pulling into the driveway every day with a puke green house. So the only other color we could agree on was white. And I still hadn't even, and we left the garage, the barn garage red to pay homage to the original red color. We are planning to keep that red. And then probably the front door might end up being the red, but.
So I did a little research on the red, and there was this is mentioned in the most recent Reading historical book that the Blodgetts wrote. I don't know if you saw that.
At Wood End?
No, the one that came after that just was published last year.
No, I didn't know.
So there was a well-known card and art company that was in your edition, which was called the Red Farm Card Company.
Yeah.
And if you look at Walkable Reading, there's a reference to the well-known red. I think we need to talk about the red, especially in relation to the deed restriction that makes mention of colors.
Mm-hmm. I think that as long as it stays within historic colors, I think that should be a discussion, because I really, the red farmhouse, the little red farmhouse is what Mrs. Day, who lived here, Mrs. Nelson, who lived here, that's what she called it. I don't think it was a name that was coined back in the 1700s. That was probably in the 1970s or so that she started calling it her art studio.
Actually, it was 1947, but you're right. It's not from the 1700s.
Right. And in fact, I grew up in a historic home in Danvers, and I had her cookbook. We used to cook from, so she's an artist, and I actually had her cookbook. And when I ever found out that was the woman whose house this was, I was like, oh my gosh, this was meant to be. Because I love that cookbook. I love the drawings. But I don't want to go back to red. I would be willing to discuss other colors, but
So we
I
can,
don't understand why the natural shingle is not okay.
so I'm just speaking for myself. But the house has been red and is known as a red house. So this, Jonathan can probably explain this better than I can though, because we also have a deed restriction on the depot building, the train depot. And they wanted to change the color, and we talked about the option of their changing the color to a color it had been in the past. And wasn't there some sort of test that they did about paint, but picking a color that it has never been is perhaps something that we're not going to be happy about. But I'll let Jonathan tell you more about that.
Well, for myself, just to jump in, we obviously should have further discussion about the color, because in this particular case, the preservation restriction agreement does reserve to discussion and approval in this forum a change of color. And you're right. I mean, it certainly was red, although it is perhaps some degree noteworthy that it's not confirmed to me that it necessarily was originally red, but that it became at least the little red card company in the mid 40s. That may have some bearing. I don't know whether Virginia or Charlene can shed any light as to how long it had been that color. But in any event, the issue with respect to colors is something that we will have to deliberate and talk about. But in terms of the depot, the depot, it is true that the current owner did seek to change that color, and we did intervene in that with the select board, and felt very strongly that it actually should retain the current colors. But that's tied not just to historic colors of train depots, but also to the B&M Railroad Company that's associated with that. Those are the primary colors of the train company, and that's consistent historically with train companies. Would oftentimes they color their trains and their engines, as well as the train depots that color. So I think it has a little different connotation with respect to the depot, at least to me, maybe not necessarily to everybody. I haven't necessarily formulated an opinion one way or the other, so we can and should have further discussion about that. Look, can I just back up for 1 second though, before we do that, and just also ask, and then I think we ought to sort of go around and see if people have questions and then or comments. But I wanted to ask, as we're talking about the replacement windows, we're talking about the windows upstairs, which are 6/6, and they are replacing 6/6 windows. The downstairs are 9/6. And what is the replacement window for them? Is it also 9/6, or is that also 6/6?
No,
or something else?
Those are 6/6.
Okay, they're just bigger, obviously bigger windows, but they're not what to replace the 9/6 in terms of the Mutton style.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that. Are there any other questions that any of the commission members would have? Let's go through and ask some questions, and then we can go through and have some comments. Sam, yes.
So I'm confused about what is what color currently. So can you, and what's just plain shingle? Can you describe?
The half house, excuse me, is white,
I can show you a picture.
and the carriage house is natural. And the garage is red.
The carriage house is the extension that was formerly the red card company.
Right.
I just have a nice, that's not going to show, right?
It's not.
Let me see if I can find, well,
Yeah. Are any of these attached to each other? They're all separate.
They're all
things?
attached.
they're all connected.
Okay.
Well, when you say they all, the two are connected, correct?
Plus the garage.
Yeah,
Is
so
the garage connected?
does that show?
Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
The show.
The
I need a
garage
date.
is to the rear of the structure, correct?
Yep.
Oh, here's one.
And you're saying the garage is attached to the rest of the structure?
Not directly to the carriage house. There's
Okay.
in fact, we're in the room. There's a room
Okay.
between.
Okay, so here is, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this part of the house is called a half house.
Yep.
This was originally a carriage house and a barn.
And a
with
studio.
That's the Red Farm studio.
Oh, right, but
Right.
I'm saying originally before it was a studio, it was carriage house. And in fact, we have lots of pictures. We have a picture from 1851, which I can show you. And the house is, well, it's a black and white picture, but the house is actually brown.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, we wanted to keep it natural. And then the rest with the white trim.
Okay.
And then the barn in the back, a barn, I call it barn, the garage is white.
They also
Now
at one point had a store. The storefront faced Franklin Street on the
That's
end
the
of
art
the,
studio.
but I know they sold.
Yeah.
They
Now,
sold
just to
both.
be clear, what is being described as the garage, which is to the back, basically behind the studio, just so that folks know, that is not a part of the building for purposes of the preservation restriction agreement. So
Correct.
that is not something that is within our purview. The only structures that are within our purview are the studio, the carriage house, and which is a 1-story or 1.5 story, and the half house, which is the 2.5 story. But just back to Sam's original question, and correct me if I'm wrong, our purview is in fact the red color. The Red Barn studio is now natural shingle, which will
Correct.
gray naturally. And the half house is painted white now.
Right.
So that's for your question, Sam. Okay, was that it for your question on that, Sam, or did you have other questions?
Well, now I'm not sure. I don't know the historic use of shingle. Would that have been used on a house of that age or at any point in time, as opposed to clapboards? I don't know much myself about.
They were direct. I think they were a direct replacement to what was there.
Yeah, in terms of the discussion for tonight's proposal, they are a replacement of shingle. But I think Sam's question is separate and apart from that. And maybe I can turn to you, Virginia, because you're probably the best repository for this historic information. Is cedar shingle something that does have some historic references, either in this house or generally?
In general, sometimes earlier houses had a combination of clapboards and shingles. And without old photographs, which would only bring it back to the 1860s, when photography came in, that I don't know what the original siding would have been.
Okay.
When we took off the shingles, there was, I think it's called barn board. The original behind the shingles was very big boards that were like kind of jigsaw puzzled together. I don't know if that was ever exposed, like if that was ever part of the facade. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Part of it. But that was what was under the shingles.
Neat. Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Okay, are there any other questions? Virginia, yes.
Just to follow up, I think the fact that it has been shingled for a very long time establishes a pattern of, well, it establishes the fact that shingles have been used. The other thing we should always consider is that the previous owners, the ones that had the historic homestead, were carpenters and builders. So I know they probably did quite a bit of work on the house. And it's going to be difficult to determine. We might be able to go back to that BU study and find out what their report was for the exterior. But my question would be, do we really need to go back that far? And that's something we'll have to discuss as a group as well.
Okay, thanks, Virginia. Any other questions,
I have a
Jack,
question,
Pina?
Jonathan.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jack here. The windows on the first floor, which are now 9/6, are they in fact going to be 6/6?
Yes,
So
we got
that-
6.
So that the proportions of the individual lights will be different than the windows on the second floor. Is that correct?
So the 9/6, so that one of the windows out of the 2 panes, one of them is much larger than the other. So now with 6/6, they'll be the same size. It won't be, the 9 won't be larger than, the 9 on the bottom was larger than the top. Does that make sense?
No.
No, okay. Let me see if I can show you a picture.
Yeah, could you show us a picture? Because unless you're closing down the size of the window, that can't happen.
Oh, no. Okay, so here is a picture of the downstairs window. The top window has 9 squares, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
Lights.
The bottom part has 6.
Yes.
Now it's going to be 6/6, which means the window will be, the 2 panes will be the same size.
Are you saying that the panes that all of those panes are not the same size? Because I can't tell that.
All of the panes are the same size, but the top, like if these windows could open and close, the top piece is much larger.
Gotcha. Because it's got 9 panes in it.
So it's still going to be
Correct.
a double hung window. It's going to be
Correct.
6/6, and the median rail between the upper and the lower window frame will be raised by 1 level of panes.
Not quite a level of paint.
Yeah, 1 level,
But to
because
make-
it's 9 plus 6 is 12, so you have to have 6 and 6.
Correct.
And
But-
do you have a picture
No.
of that? What that's
No,
going to look like?
9 plus 6 isn't 12. 9 plus 6 is 15.
15. So how are you going to do it?
It'll be 12. They'll be a little bit larger. I think is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my concern, is that you're changing the size of the lights, the panes, the individual panes.
Right.
Well, they will in
In the
fact
bottom.
be different than the second story. And you're raising the shadow line. The shadow line is where the median rail is. It's where the 2 windows come together. And that's going to be raised.
Right.
So it's going to have a major and significant impact on the elevation of the house, because there are 3 windows, and that's really what you see from the street. So
When you say, Jack, when you say it's going to have a major impact on the elevation, can you describe what you mean when you say by the elevation?
Visual.
The visual. Okay.
the elevation, Jonathan, is the total facade.
Right.
And the house is very simple, and so the shadow lines are very important. They give the visual impact to the whole elevation of the house. Now, part of the impact is the disparate windows on the second floor and on the first floor.
Okay.
And the proposal is to change that.
Correct.
And it's to change it by changing the size of the lights, but also, and this is very important, listen carefully, Jonathan, by raising the shadow line of the median rail. The median rail is where the two windows come together, and that casts a shadow. And you're raising that up. Do you understand?
Right. Yeah, I certainly understand. Sure.
And so that is something that we need to see a picture of, or a rendering of it, or both, so that we can understand how that is changing the visual quality of the street elevation of the house.
In defense of that, the trees grow. Oh, you're not even going to be able to see the windows from the street. I don't think anyone will even notice a change on the first floor.
I'll notice a change, and
Other than the fact that these will be clean and operable and not falling apart.
And they're insert windows. They're not built from the outside in. So we won't be touching anything
On the
on
outside.
the outside. They're the exact same size. I hear what you're saying, but we purposely didn't get full replacement windows because we
Well,
didn't want to affect the outside.
Well, the new windows, you're not changing the size, the overall size of the window.
No.
No.
They fit right in.
Yeah, so those proportions of the lights will be different then.
Right, and that is an important point, and I appreciate, Jack, you're bringing that up.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but
Exactly. So we got that point. Were there? Let's keep going. Were there any other questions from Jack or anyone else at this point? And then we'll go around with particular comments. But let's just flush out all of the questions. Jack, did you have other questions at this point?
No, I'm okay at this point.
Great, thanks.
But but John, I will say that my question has not been answered.
What do you mean? I think it has been answered. What do you mean?
yeah, ask again.
Okay.
That's the only possible answer.
Okay. Obviously, that hasn't been answered because we haven't seen that, but I understand your point. Were there other questions from anybody? Pino or Charlene, any questions?
I don't have any questions right now.
All right, thanks.
Is
Charlene?
it any of our business whether these windows have already been purchased and paid for?
Well, I can just speak for myself. Technically, no, it isn't any of our business, but obviously it is something that I presume it's something we know. We should ask, I guess, Chris or Sue, do you have all of these windows? I know I saw a bunch of them out there, but have you purchased all of them already?
Yeah, we did. We ordered them back. We've been trying to get the builder here since May, and finally got them in. They were special order. They finally came in, and he started the other day when you came over, Jonathan, in Virginia.
Yeah.
When we made him, cease and desist. So he's supposed to come. I don't know when he'll come back, but
okay. So technically, I see you, Sam. Hang on. So technically, I mean, I shouldn't say it's not a factor. The preservation restriction agreement doesn't necessarily indicate specifically what the criteria are that we consider whether to approve or to disapprove. But generally speaking, I mean, this is just my thought. It probably didn't intend to consider whether the windows had been purchased or not, because obviously the intention from the preservation agreement was that the request would come in before they were purchased, and this would all be flushed out afterwards. But nonetheless,
we didn't
it is.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we understand that. So we definitely understand that. But so that it is a factor that we at least are aware of, and to the extent that it plays into anybody's consideration, that's up for discussion, I suppose. Sam, yes.
Is it likely that those windows were always 9/6 with the top one being bigger than the bottom, or is that?
We have no
We're
idea.
going to try to find some we can go through our pictures and see. Actually, I can grab the one from 1850. Hold on, I have a
Oh, cool.
from 1850.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously,
if that proportion's always been there, I'm more likely to want to keep it. But if those are 60s replacement windows, and it didn't necessarily look like that before, may not be so important.
right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess there's two questions here. We at least know that at this particular time, the bottom windows are 9/6. What we don't know is what they were when it was built. Yeah, Sue.
So this picture is from 1865. And it shows actually that they're 6/6, which is good. Let's see. I'm trying to see.
That's hard to see. Sue, I'm sorry, we can't hear you at all if you're speaking to us.
Okay, so I'll talk first and then show you the picture. So this picture is from 1865. You can see you could even see the little cobbler, the guy standing in front of the house on Franklin Street. The windows are 6/6, 6/6. A funny story, when this picture was given to me by our neighbor who grew up in this house. And when we converted the garage, she said, "Oh, did you model that after the original cobbler shop?" And we said, "What cobbler shop?" And she said, "That from that picture, did you model this after the picture?" We didn't know, but we actually put the garage in the exact spot where the cobbler shop is.
Can't hear you, Sue.
We put the garage in the exact spot where the cobbler shop used to be. It wasn't there when we bought the house. The exact spot, like almost like it was just meant to be there.
Interesting.
That used to be a cobbler shop right there. The windows on the Franklin Street side are actually 6/6.
You're gonna have to say.
I know, it blocks the microphone.
Yeah. What were you saying about it? And then you can show us the picture.
Okay, so on the Franklin side, Franklin Street and Pasture Road side, the windows are 6/6 in this picture from 1850. I'll try to point to it here and show you. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get it right. Right there.
Okay.
Here are some other 6/6.
Would it be possible for you to take a picture of that and then email it to me, and then we can email it around?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. So it does appear, and to be honest, it was really hard to see that in the picture, but I'll take your representation that it was that they were 6/6 in the 1856 picture. Okay, I'm not sure if there are any other questions per se. So if that's the case, then let's go around and discuss how we feel about this, if anybody wants to weigh in. I'm sorry, Sam.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any, it changes the proportions from what they are now, but if that 1856 photo had 6/6 windows in those same spots, I don't have any objection to you putting them back to that proportion. But,
Okay.
I'm looking, I feel like we need to look for evidence of what might have been or was probably the case or would have been likely. And I think if those windows had been that same 9/6 its whole life, I'd be more concerned with keeping them the same. But it looks like they've been that 6/6 before, so I don't see any reason not to do it again. So.
Okay. I guess I sort of feel the same. I mean, I think Jack's point about that is very valuable and important. And obviously changing it to 6/6 is definitely changing it from what it was before. But I agree with you, Sam, that the importance of that or the value of that is significantly lessened to me if it is in fact the case that historically they weren't 9/6, but that historically they might have been 6/6. So I probably feel the same, although I would have to say that just, as I'm thinking about it, the fact that those windows on the top and the bottom are definitely proportioned very differently. It does strike me that the 9/6 is better suited to those windows than 6/6, given their size in proportion to the upper ones. But that begs the question in terms of the historical significance of it. Having said that,
I think it looks better too, the 9/6, but
Me too.
historically, I don't think we can make an argument insisting that we keep them.
yeah, I guess I would agree. And I would also say, I see you, Virginia. Hang on for 1 second. I just want to say, so I see in addition to that, there's the other question of are we satisfied or willing to approve the change in the material of the windows from what exists now? And obviously, I say somewhat tongue in cheek. I mean, obviously, the windows that you replaced aren't necessarily any more historically accurate, or in fact, even better from the standpoint of material. So I don't have that much of an issue. And it is noted to me that I don't know how many of the windows you said were either cracked or broken or unmovable, but the fact that you are having movable windows, I think is important. So I'm not sure that I have much of a concern about the change of the material. Similarly, with respect to the cedar shingle, I don't have any objection to the cedar shingle. And then the next question we need to talk about is the change in the color. Red, although I know that I'm not living there, and it doesn't necessarily even have any historical reference either. I'm not sure that I would want to stand on principle on that either. So those are my comments. Let me turn to you, Virginia.
I'd like to address the window issue. Theoretically, when you put in replacement windows, that is what they are named for. You will be, perhaps you won't be, but the next owners will be putting in replacement windows again, because they only last 20 to 30 years. Whereas years ago, the wood was much better, and they would last 100 or 150 years. So it's too bad that these windows have already been replaced. My concern is, I was asked Jonathan about this. Do windows need building permits? And we have to recognize the fact on the second floor, these windows are very small, which is typical of that construction era. They're close to the upper plate and are quite probably the original size and dimensions and placement, whereas the lower ones have been replaced over the years, and the front door has been removed from that facade, which it would have had as a half house. I'll think of more things later on.
Well, and I can answer, I think, that first question, and I'm sure the D'Ambrosios were made aware of this fact as well. But it does require a permit, as it turns out. And I haven't shared this with you, Chris and Sue, and I suppose it's no secret. But I had a conversation when I was trying to set up this emergency, if you will, meeting to try to make it as quickly as possible. I think I had mentioned to you that I had to actually I needed to get the approval of the town, because this is their Zoom license, and they only have so many. So we had to make sure that we could access a Zoom license that the town has for the day in which we were looking to have the meeting. So I called Julie, who you met at the beginning of this meeting, because she was the one who manages for us. She's the community development director, and she manages the Zoom meetings. And when I was speaking to her about the Zoom meeting, I mentioned to her that I was asking because this issue would come up, and we had just left the house, and it turns out that it is a house on on our inventory, obviously, and it has a preservation restriction agreement. And I asked her, because we had previously provided the planning department, her department, because they manage all of the permits, including demolition permits and all other permits. We had previously provided them with a copy of all of the deed restrictions or preservation restriction agreements on properties that we're sort of managing, like this one, so that anytime a resident came to them to do work on a house, or more importantly for our purposes, demolish a house on the inventory, before they approved the permit, or they would notice that there's a deed restriction associated with it. So I raised to her, how come this came up that the D'Ambrosios were able to go forward with this, and the town didn't realize that there was a deed restriction on this property? And she said, that's a good question. I don't know. And when she went in to inquire about it, it turns out evidently that a permit had not been necessarily issued for this, which was unfortunate all around. And I'm sure you guys felt it was a little disturbing, because the town then contacted the D'Ambrosios that day and said, you need to apply for a permit. So they are proceeding through that process, and they are applying and obtaining the requisite permit, in answer to your question, Virginia.
We trusted our builder that not our builder, our window guy, that he knew what he was doing. So when we confronted him about it, we said, were you supposed to get a permit for that? Or were we supposed to get a permit? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, well.
So Kim Saunders contacted us that night.
Yeah.
Make sure he does.
Yeah, I got she sent a copy of it to me, so I got it.
Good.
I'll just as an aside, the commission can appreciate this. So you guys definitely would not appreciate this, but as an aside, there are different permits that the town issues, and obviously a permit to install a window. It's important, as I understand it, because as Julie pointed out, windows are ingress and egress, and that's why it's more important to the town, as compared to reshingling the house, which doesn't necessarily require a permit. But because a window can be an egress from the house, the town has elevated it under the building code to require a permit. But there are different levels of permits in the town, and the permit that was required to do the windows is different than a permit, say, to demolish a back wall on the house, not to demolish the whole house, but to demolish a back wall. If the building inspector, if you guys had gone in and asked, said that you were going to do something that he thought would elevate to the level of what is called in the town a demolition permit, even though you weren't demolishing the house, that would have required a whole different kettle of worms with us, because if what the work you were doing required a demolition permit, it would have required notice to the historical commission and set up a demolition delay hearing, which we would have had to set up a full public hearing, and conceivably held up the project for up to 6 months. So when I was talking to them, when Julie said to me that it required a permit, I said, please don't tell me it's going to require a demolition permit, because that would have required having to go through a whole different hearing and a whole different process. So I know you were very disappointed, obviously, as well you should have been, when Kim contacted you to tell you that you had to file for a permit. I was relieved to know that it wasn't even going to be worse. So I'm kind of glad about that. Okay, so let's keep going in terms of comments about this. Any other comments from the commission? Because we do have to come to a decision. Charlene.
Yeah. Now, when you talked about the demolition delay, if someone tried to demolish a historic structure and they didn't have a permit, then according to the bylaw, they would have a 2-year moratorium on constructing. Now, is there anything in the preservation restriction that says if something happens, there's like a penalty or any of that type thing?
That's a good question. I do know that there is a section of the agreement, it's section 10, that's administration and enforcement. And then there is, flipping through it quickly, maybe it is that section. No,
I think the only recourse is through the courts.
yeah, not the only recourse, Virginia, as we talked about before. We could have gotten a cease and desist order from the building inspector.
Not if they hadn't applied for a permit, they wouldn't have.
No, right. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I would have to take a look at the demolition delay bylaw, but I don't believe that there's nothing in the preservation restriction agreement. I can tell you that.
That was the question, because I don't want to set any precedents. But each deed restriction is different than the others.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there should have been a permit. And yeah, if they came to us before, we might have encouraged them to go to 9/6. And we might not have gone for the white. But I mean, the white does look nice in that picture, especially with the snow in the front. And it's nice to have windows that lift up. And I think this situation's an innocent situation. The owners aren't trying to take advantage of, trying to sneak around and do something that they knew couldn't be done. It looks nice, but
Thank you.
might not be the real way that we would have preferred it be done, but.
Did you guys have a comment? I'm sorry. Was that Chris or Sue?
We just said thank you
Oh, okay.
for the comment.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead, Virginia.
We're just talking windows now, and we'll have a discussion about paint and colors after.
Okay, well, either or. I reference both, but yes, that's fine. Jack?
I don't have any issues with any of these changes. In fact, I drove by the house today, and I have noticed the house many times in the past when it was red. And I find that the white, in fact, I wish you would paint the garage white too.
So do I. He won't let me.
Well,
Won't let me.
want me to solve the marital problem here? I'll make a motion.
John, trust me, she'll win. She'll eventually wear me down. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be out there on a ladder in the middle of January.
I've got
painting
30
in my
years, I've
house.
never gotten my way. So.
Actually, I guess, hang on for 1 second.
I don't have a problem, Jonathan. I don't have a problem with the white. I would like to see a photograph of the 1854 windows, just out of my own curiosity, because the reason that they put in the 9/6 was because they wanted a smaller sash so it could go up and down. And it's not the sash, it's the size of the weight inside the window.
Mhm.
And so they obviously couldn't get a weight inside that was big enough to do the 6/6. That's why there were two. That's why it's the smaller size. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I do, and I should point out, full disclosure, that Jack is an architect, so that explains the detail. Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
Architects also like the big picture, Jonathan. In fact, we prefer the big picture. It's only the lawyers that get into the weeds.
Ouch. Well, to be fair, even though Ron's not here, it's the engineers as well. But enough said. But
okay, I don't have a problem with the white. I don't have a problem with the windows, and that's the end of my input. So,
okay, thank you. Just as an aside, before I get to you, Amelia, I just want to ask, because I did notice this is not our bailiwick, so I don't want either of you to get concerned. But I do know that you did the shutters, as I understand it, the black shutters. I'm curious, what was there before you put the black shutters up? Nothing. Okay, interesting.
the shutters are great, although you're missing one on the left-hand side.
Yeah, we know.
We haven't figured out how to address that situation with the, what is it?
Electricity
The electric
box.
box. So we
Got
don't
any
know,
suggestions?
we don't know whether we'll just put a shutter and have it partially open or closed, depending on how you look at it, or to cut out a notch. We can't decide.
Why
We
don't you
have it
move
all
the
made.
Move the electric box.
Is
Oh,
that a
boy.
possibility?
Sure.
Is that a possibility?
Oh, boy.
It's only money.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's
And
let's
if
you-
move on.
Yeah,
If
we
he's
could
gonna
put it
make the garage
Okay,
red,
yeah.
then you ought to be able to move the electric box.
Oh, boy.
Amelia, what were you?
I
what,
like that.
So, since I seem to be the only one who's hung up on the red, I just wanted Virginia, maybe she could tell something about what she knows about the histories of the color of this house and how important the red is.
Okay, Jonathan?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You don't need my
Um,
approval.
Many years ago, when I was a teenager, that house was red and the studio was red.
So that was
And it
20
has,
years ago, I guess, right?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And so it was red in the 50s, I can tell you that, and red right up until the present day. The thing is, and folks may not like this, but paint can be reversed. You can always paint over a color if you don't like what you've got. So I'm saying even in the future, another owner may want to go back to the red, and it would be perfectly appropriate. Does that answer your question?
No, not really.
In other words, looking at it from I mean, the point about the
They didn't
the,
have color then.
the point about, your comment, and it's a good one, Amelia, about the depot. I mean, but as I said, to me, the color of the depot is particularly important for a couple of reasons. Number one, the depot is an iconic emblem of the town and of its incredibly important history with the railroad, and it more or less was a public building, and the color there is not just important because it might have been the original color. I don't even know if it was the original color, but it's important because of its connection to the B&M Railroad, and we all know from having looked at 30 or 40 other depots that there's that historic connection. That's more attenuated to me in terms of its importance at a private residence. Although I will agree, I shudder to say this, but I prefer the red color as well. But I'm not gonna hold on that because I
Be
just,
yours.
No.
We could sell it to you for about 900,000.
Can
Paint
I
any color you want.
interject for a second, if you
Sure.
don't mind? So this is the Joseph Parker house. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are 3 other Parker houses in town, or
Yeah.
there's 3 altogether. So
Well,
there's the Parker
Tavern.
Tavern. There's Ezekiel Parker or something over on, it just sold for like $1 million.
Virginia, do you know?
I'm not sure.
But
That's
the Parker
another Parker.
Tavern. The Parker Tavern, actually, he was a nephew, I think, of the Parker at your house. But keep
Yeah,
going, I'm
they're
sorry.
all related. They all helped each other build the houses. And if you look at the architecture, the structure, they're all built the same. I just went on the house tour of the one, what street is it on? It's on the west side. I think it's Ezekiel Parker or something with an E. And the second I walked into the house, I knew it was the same family that built. I could tell by the post and beam, the pegs, everything was the same, except that one's much, much larger. Their house right now is light blue. The Parker Tavern is still brown, like natural
Yeah,
shingles, right?
yeah.
So, and then this picture, which I'll send to all of you, I believe it's hard to tell. It's a black and white photo, or more, I should say brown and white, sepia, whatever you want to call it. But you can kind of tell. I think those are natural shingles as well. they look weathered. I don't know when it was painted red or whatever, but I know what you're saying. The red has a, what's the word? Nostalgia.
Yeah, it has a historic connection for some reason.
Well, and it's specifically mentioned in Walkable Reading, the entry on the house.
Right.
So
Entry. Do you have that picture of the
at
store?
some point, somebody thought that was a significant feature of the house.
Although the interesting thing, just to go back and forth on that, Amelia. I mean, obviously, you know, it's important to you, and it's an important point, and I appreciate that. But the other thing about it that's interesting is it's important because it's that addition, and not the original half house that had that connection to the red color. Which I don't know whether that's good or bad, but you know, it's noted in there because of its connection to the Red Farm card company, which is that addition, which is no less important and certainly subject to our agreement. But that's a little bit removed from the original half house portion of it, again, which makes it just to me a little bit less important. And I guess the last point that I'd assert, I mean, there's no question that, interestingly, by virtue of this preservation restriction agreement, the change in color is clearly something that is within our purview for approval or denial. And I found that quite interesting because it's not lost on me, and I don't yet know. I haven't looked at the other PRAs that we have to see whether it's also included in that. It's probably not. I see you shaking your head. But the other thing, Virginia and Amelia, and Pino and Jack, from your former participation on the Historic District Commission, if I'm not mistaken, color of a house isn't even something that's within the purview of the Historic District Commission. So that, for all of those reasons, that's what, even though red color, but it's not something that I'm gonna die on the hill for. That's my own feeling. So I didn't mean to distract from its importance to you at all, Amelia.
Okay, well, I guess, you know, hearing other people's perspective could help me contextualize it. If I'm the only one who worries about it, then maybe we don't worry about it.
Well, all of our opinions are important and we don't all have to agree. So fair enough, keep that in mind. Virginia.
I'd like to bring to everyone's mind the fact that we are supposed to base our decisions on the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines. And one of those guidelines is to say that anything that is done can be reversed. So if you consider paint can be reversed, then you might be more comfortable with letting the paint be a non-issue.
Fair point. Fair point. Thank you. Okay, were there more comments, or are we prepared to bring this to a close? I think we are prepared to bring this to a close, unless just Chris or Sue, did you have any closing comments, or have you heard enough?
No.
Are we going to entertain a vote, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was absent any other comments. Then I was going to entertain a motion, and I guess it would be in the. I see Virginia shaking her hand, and I would be remiss if I didn't turn to her.
Should we, in the motion or in the minutes, indicate that we will waive the necessity of having written application and from the applicants? I'm just concerned about setting precedents. Or do you feel that we've had enough discussion that even though it's after the fact, we're granting permission on things?
Well, it's a fair point, and that's why, with all due respect, Chris, that's why I started off the discussion by asking where that was, because at a minimum, I was not comfortable in rendering a decision on this, which, by the way, we're going to have to ultimately put to you in writing. I was not comfortable in rendering a decision until we at least did receive that application. But in answer to your question, I mean, we can't unring the bell in terms of the the application having come in after the fact, as well as the work having gotten started. But I will note that according to Chris, that application was sent upon my request for it, apparently on Tuesday, even though we did just get it today. But I did send, he did submit a written request in an email. It does not comply with the requirement in the agreement that the notification be sent by certified mail or in hand. And I suppose we should at least acknowledge and yes, waive that. But I did send that email to everybody else, so you all at least have that.
Yep.
I was going to suggest that we put in the motion that we approve their application as submitted, even though it is late. That solves your concern, Jonathan.
Yeah, that is fine. Do me a favor, just bear with me while I take another look at it. We would like to request approval to make 2 improvements. We'd like to repair, replace many of the shingles. The old carriage house, the shingles are old, ragged. Many of them are missing, to replace them with new, similar. Secondly, the windows on both floors have been in disrepair, may have broken, moldy. They are poor energy. We were very methodical to replace these windows with new Harvey window inserts. So nothing actually in the request references the change of color, but we should at least, if we can add that to your motion, Jack, including the change in color, then I think that makes sense. I'm going to ask Amelia. Can you repeat that, Jack? Are you able to repeat that?
I didn't say anything. You need a motion.
Okay, let her rip.
I move that we approve the DeBrizio's application as submitted, with the addition that we also approve the change of color from red to white, and that we note that the application was tardy due to technical difficulties.
No. No, it wasn't tardy because of technical. It was because they had not submitted it beforehand.
Oh, I thought Jonathan had gotten it in time.
No, all of this work was done before they. Yeah, all of this work, Jack. Just so you know, all the change of the shingles, as well as the paint, as well as several of the windows, were started before we got involved. So you could just leave it as, although it was tardy, and leave out the last part of technical duties.
Okay, that's fine.
It would be fine. The only suggestion that I would make, I know we got to get a second, but and we can continue to work on that. You said with the addition that we approve the color, but I would like you to reword that to say we would approve their request to change the color, so that it's clear that was also a part of their request, albeit not in the written form.
Yeah, that's fine.
Virginia,
The address should be included in the motion.
Yeah, at 420 Franklin Street, and we ought to correct for the record the party's name as D'Ambrosio. Are you okay, Amelia, in terms of getting that motion down? And then we should read it back.
She's on mute.
I can't even see her because I have the.
Sorry.
Okay.
So Jack makes a motion that we approve the D'Ambrosio's application to, renovate their application for their historic home at 420 Franklin Street as submitted, with the addition of a request to change the color. And although the application was tardy, does that hit all the
Yeah, but when you're saying their application, I guess it should say their application to install replacement windows and to replace the cedar shingles.
So the application to install replacement windows and replace cedar shingles as submitted with the change to the color and the notation that the application was late.
Yeah. And I guess what I would like to also, for the record, Chris, I don't know the date, the original date. You sent that email. Was it, we should just acknowledge the date of it. So what date was it sent? Was that the 4th?
The evening, I believe that you asked me to send it. Was that Tuesday?
I think it was Tuesday.
I'm going to
I'm
send
sorry.
you, I'm going to forward you what I sent to myself so you can see the timestamp on it.
Okay. I'm okay with that, but I just want to reference in the motion that their application dated whatever it was, November 3rd.
Actually, it says November 5th.
I know that's what he sent today, though. But he's saying that he originally sent it November 3rd to me.
Day night, yeah.
And he's going to email me a copy of that, so we'll at least have it in the record.
Okay.
I need to do it.
Okay, can we read that one last time, Amelia, so everybody's aware of it?
Okay, so Jack moves that we approve the D'Ambrosio's application to install replacement windows and cedar shingles at their historic home at 420 Franklin Street as submitted on November 3rd, with the exception of a change in the color, the note that the application was not rendered in advance. Does that do it?
Well, let's keep working. Virginia, go ahead.
What?
I think we should reference the preservation agreement.
Right.
Okay.
So their application per the the applicable preservation restriction agreement. Because that
to install per the application restriction agreement as submitted on November 3rd, with the addition of a request to change the color, and then a note that November 3rd was not in advance. Does that do it?
I think that does it. Any other comments? Hearing none, we need a second, and I'll be happy to second it.
I'll second.
I beat you to it, Charlene.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote. Sam?
I vote yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Amelia?
Abstain.
And Jonathan, yes.
And Virginia.
No,
No, we have it's the 5 of us, right? 1, 2,
Oh,
3,
that's
4,
right.
5.
You're right. Okay.
So 4 in favor, 1 abstention. So my only question, I guess, is to Sue. I would ask you to rate this Zoom meeting to the pain inflicted in the other Zoom meetings that you participate in with your school children.
This is 1,000 times better. 1,000 times better. This was nothing compared to 20 first graders.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was expecting a different answer, but
No, it was great.
you're far too tactful.
Very well done.
So if you could then send me the picture of the 1856,
Yep.
and also the email dated November 3rd, and we can send you on your way.
Okay.
Great.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Virginia, yes.
one final caution. Please, if you're going to do more construction, please contact us first, so we don't have to go through
Yep.
this.
We
No,
didn't,
You
realize.
know,
Does that
I-
include if I change the color of the door or something? Do I need to contact you to change the color of the door? I don't think I'm going to, but. And what if we go with Jack's suggestion to paint the garage white? What did we?
the garage is not a part of our
Oh, that's right.
of our jurisdiction. Bear with me for 1 second. Let me just quickly take a peek at, I'm trying to find 4. Oh, here it is.
While you're doing that, can I just say we really appreciate you getting this done so quickly.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize for not having contacted you prior.
Just
That
didn't
won't
know.
happen again.
Maybe also when you eventually pass on the house to the next people to make sure that they are aware of the agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe we'll break the record of 101 years or something.
Ah, good.
You know, it's
Okay.
interesting.
I'll drive by and give you the color for the front door.
Okay.
I'm
Sounds
looking,
good.
I'm looking at this, shall not include the right to make changes in appearance. And I do believe that's in reference to the color, Sue. I shudder at the thought. I don't know what anybody else's thought is. This particular agreement, I think, is unusual, as I said before, because it does specifically reference color, which is odd. Obviously, as I'm reading this, if you were to repaint the door, whatever color it is now, you clearly can do that. But I got to say, the way I'm reading this, unfortunately, I think if you're making a change in appearance, and that would be a change in appearance, it probably does require you to come to us. I'm sorry to say that. Does anybody else have a different opinion?
I don't know any such agreement that puts restrictions on the color. It's a personal preference within certain guidelines. If they were to paint the house purple, we would have an issue.
Jack?
But the Historic District Commission.
No, I completely agree with you, Jack. It's extremely unusual, and I'm not all that comfortable with it either myself. But let me just say this: if you look at this particular provision and this one, which thank goodness is not in any other one, the owner has the right, without coming to us, to do the following. They have the right to maintain and repair, as long as it means use by the grantor of in-kind materials and colors applied with workmanship comparable. So it specifically references that they can, as long as it's an in-kind color, they don't have to come to us. But that same provision then goes on to say, shall not include, this paragraph shall not include the right to make changes in appearance, materials, and workmanship from that existing prior without the prior approval. I don't see how you read that any other way than to say, if you're changing the appearance, because it specifically mentioned in-kind color they can do, but when it says you cannot make a change in appearance without getting our approval, I don't know how you get around it. And it's really, it's probably crazy, but to me, that seems to be what it says. And thank goodness it's not in any of the others.
I once painted a client's door 16 different times to get the right color. So I think you're right, Jonathan. And a short letter might be appropriate if you decide to change the front door color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna.
Just anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't have to be certified. Just send us a letter.
Yeah, the problem is the wording of the agreement is the wording of the agreement. It does require our approval. It does require our approval, and it does require that it be in writing. You're right, though. It may not necessarily require. Well, there's no way we can deliberate without having a public meeting. So I don't know how we get around those steps. But let's worry about that when
I'll just go and tell them
it.
the color to paint it and leave it at that.
But I do want to ask before we let everybody go, and I'm sorry if you just indulge me for one more minute. We have never, to my knowledge, we've never been inside this house, and we came up with the same, other than the other day when we barged into on your house unannounced, for which I guess I should apologize. But the agreement does provide that we are supposed to inspect it at least every 5 years, or when it's sold, and that's primarily for the purpose of assessing, and discussing what changes have been made. I guess I just want to ask. We recently did this with 409 Grove Street when it was for sale. Is there any interest at any point among the commission members? I'm going to guess I know the answer from Chris and Sue, but is there any interest from the commission members at some point asking to have an inspection? And I don't mean an inspection for any intense purposes other than just to get a snapshot of what it looks like at this particular point.
Only if it's at cocktail hour.
Okay, well, I'll defer that for now. Virginia, yes.
Sorry about that. I was following a different train of thought. One thing, when you do repairs and replacements of items, it's always wise to keep one segment.
Example.
So that, say it again, Shelley.
Example.
That's fine, thank you. Of the work that you're replacing. So keep it up in the attic or someplace so that future owners can use it as an example and sometimes replicate. I know it would be unusual to replicate replacement windows, but still I'd urge you to save at least one so that future owners would know what was there before.
Noted.
I'm sorry to raise this one out too, but actually Ron brought this to my attention. The historical commission sign, this is maybe petty, but that goes to Jack's point about, or my point about engineers. The historic commission sign, as we now all know quite painfully, is on the addition portion of the house. Which we know doesn't go back to 1711, and technically should probably have been on the original half house portion of the house. I'm not sure how or when that happened. And you know what I'm talking about, the sign on your house that says 1711.
You mean it, so we have it near the street so people can see it when they're driving. But well, that's where it was when we bought the house. Right. You're saying it shouldn't be on the lawn.
I'm not saying it shouldn't. We technically don't necessarily tell people where to put it, but as Ron pointed out, where it's located, it suggests that it dates to 1711, and that portion of the house doesn't date to 1711. It's the other portion of the house that dates to 1711.
The house doesn't date to 1711 either, really.
Well, I'm not so sure. But yeah, you're right. There's a question about that, but let's not revisit that. And frankly, I'm sorry I even raised it. I leave that entirely up to you guys to figure out where to put that sign.
We can stop by Ron's house and say where.
Because we stop by Ron's house and ask him where he would like you to put the sign.
We will. Yeah, I don't want to ask him that. I'm afraid what he'll say, but yeah. We'll
I'm gonna leave that to you.
Okay. Sounds
all right.
good.
I think I'm gonna close this meeting and call it a night.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll second that.
Wait a minute, did you vote on? Yes, you did, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, we voted for one abstention. So yes, I'll second that. And quickly, Sam? Sam? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Yes. Jack?
Yes, and I have a quick question for you, Jonathan.
Okay, Amelia?
Yes.
And me, yes. So the meeting is closed. Yes, Jack.
Could you ask Franklin to resubmit his bill so it's for $2,000 only?
I can, and hopefully by now he will have gotten. I had a conversation with him just today. I mean, he hasn't gotten the first $2,000, so.
But
you know,
but from the perspective of the town, it's been paid. And the bill that he gave me, there's no way that I can mark it up.
Okay, here's what I'll do, because I don't want him to change the bill for $2,000 because the bill is $4,000, and I don't think it's fair to him because he hasn't been paid. But hopefully by now, since it has been 3 weeks, he will have been paid. Why don't I ask him that when he gets the bill to resubmit an invoice for the remaining balance due of $2,000, and that should work, correct?
That's fine.
Okay.
Jonathan, shouldn't we let the owners go if we're going to talk about
Yes,
not sure if
by
we should
all
be
means.
hearing this.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your
We
time.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. And as I said
All right.
before, we appreciate your stewardship of that house. So thank you.
We love it. We're very proud of it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah, that works, Jonathan.
Okay, good. So I'll tell him to do that. I'm going to guess nobody can answer. No, I'm sure nobody can answer this question. Did I tell you people that Chris Latham asked me about the possibility for 531 Main Street, if they ever get approval, which is questionable at this point. As we all know, there is a transformer that is on site at the back of that building. On can't believe I can't think of the name of the street. Somebody help me out. Chapin. And he has asked whether or not it would be possible, or whether the historical commission would agree to have them, if possible, have Franklin install a historical wrap on that transformer. Now, that transformer, Jack, you're probably best able to tell us the size, but it's pretty large. So it would be a pretty large pictorial wrap. I will say that he mentioned to me that he raised it to the light department, and they gave him some pushback, claiming that would be difficult because it requires some special electrostatic paint, presumably because of the heat that it generates. So Chris was asking me if I knew anything about whether or not, or whether Franklin knew anything about the capability of putting those vinyl wraps on a transformer of that large size to get around the
Side. It's not a smooth surface.
I don't know.
No, it's not a smooth surface. I'll go take a look at it, but if it's the one I think it is,
Well, it's not there yet, Jack. It's only in the drawings.
there's no way you say that again.
It does exist. It's only in the drawings.
Oh,
This would be on the proposed.
well, let's get a copy of the drawing.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. But my other question is, how do we all feel about having it? I mean, I think it'd be great if we could do it, but how do you all feel before I speak for you?
That sounds
If it
fine.
ever happens,
I need to see it.
to see the transformer.
What?
You're saying to see the transformer?
Yes, and its location.
Okay, we'll take a look at it, and I guess we can. I mean, nothing is happening on this, obviously, and they're getting nothing but opposition from the CPDC. You guys are going to love this. I'm sorry, I'm switching gears. So we'll put this, Amelia, on the agenda just to talk about this. Jack, in the meantime, take a look at the drawings for the transformer, and we'll discuss it on the 19th or whenever our next meeting is. I got to tell you this. This is unbelievable. You know our discussion about the utility. Did anybody watch that?
No,
The CPDC meeting?
no.
The utility pole?
Oh,
Jack, you would have been
No.
proud of me. Well, I guess I should defer and leave that to your decision, but
I'm proud of you all the time, Jonathan.
you're a good man, Jack. They discussed the poll, but in the course of discussing the poll, and it was Ryan Percival. I don't know if you guys know him. He's the town engineer. He was the one.
We're talking about South Street now?
We're talking about the South Street Scenic Road
Okay.
utility pole.
Okay,
RMLD wasn't there. Verizon wasn't there. Ryan presented the application for the scenic road approval to the CPDC. And, his first comment was, it's a utility pole, what a utility pole looks like. There may be some guy wires and yada, yada, yada. But then he goes on. I think I might have mentioned that the utility pole is intended to service electricity to a pump station that's right there. I don't think you can see it because it's underground over there. Maybe some relatively small box that's right behind it.
It's not small, Jonathan, it's big.
Okay, well, it's about to get bigger, and that's the point. That is not on the right of way. That's at Sturgis Park, and he started to show pictures of what's going on here. They are going to install a much larger pump station there, and it's going to be, most of the mechanics for that pump station are all underground right now, but they are all going to be above ground. So there is going to be, I don't know the size because he never shared it with me, and he only showed a picture of what this is, but it's the pump station, and then it's this mechanics that has to be 6 or 8 feet by 6 or 8 feet, and it's surrounded by a quite attractive fence, which is, looks like a very, very attractive wooden fence that has lattice work, horizontal lattice work and vertical lattice work, not the diagonal on the top. So it looks really good, but it's this enormous fenced in area, 8 by 8, next to a very large sewer station box, bordered by, landscaping of some bushes and shrubs and stuff. So I was like gabsmacked, or is that gobsmacked? I said, I was actually speechless when I first started to speak, and I said, I have to say, first of all, I haven't seen any of this. All that we knew and all that we talked about was a utility pole, and I have to tell you that our position relative of the pole and the contemplated auxiliary material at that proposed location would adversely impact the scenic features and scenic value in that section of South Street, a scenic road. However, that was my statement when I was talking about a utility pole. Right. I had no idea about all of this other chazarai, and I got to tell you, the utility pole pales in comparison to the way in which, I'm not saying that the fence isn't attractive and the landscaping isn't attractive, but it was a lovely, serene, white pine, quiet landscaped area, which was, which served to justify naming it as a scenic roadway because of the scenic vista, and you have completely decimated that and changed that. And I have nothing else to say. I mean, I was just appalled, and I believe I said that information wasn't provided to us as a part of our consideration of this. And it actually, I think, kind of quieted this. They didn't know what to say in terms of their approval, but the problem was, and we all recognized it. In fact, John Weston, who's the chair of the commission, he sort of said, okay, so let's talk about, whether we're going to approve this. And he said, I don't know what to say, but then the discussion revolved around the important point that what they did off the right of way has no bearing with respect to the consideration of the pole in the scenic way. So regrettably, they ultimately concluded that, that had no relevance. I argued that it did have relevance because, even though it's not in the right of way and therefore not subject to the scenic road regulations, when you take a look at the scenic road regulations, they clearly speak to the criteria for the CPDC approving a scenic road, the scenic vistas within view of the center line of the right of way. So the bottom line is it's a peculiarity relative to the bylaw, and it had no bearing on their ultimate decision. But I didn't want you all. I wanted you all to be aware that what I represented to you as the change going on there doesn't remotely demonstrate what the actual change is going to be to that area. It's that whole bank of trees is probably, in fact, it is all going to be gone, Jack. There are other white pines that are going to be pulled out because they have to be pulled out to do this work. So it's quite unfortunate is the bottom line.
Jonathan, did they indicate why they had taken the pole out?
Yeah, Ryan, it was because of my email. It was
Okay.
it was because we had brought it to their attention, and Ryan was unaware of it. Julie was unaware of it, and he basically said, explain what you did. You had no right to do that. And they said we're pulling it out.
Good.
So they did pull it out, but unfortunately,
Once again, the goddamn engineers are designing our visual environment, and that's why it looks so ugly.
Yeah, right. So, they started then talking about, well, let's think about maybe we can move the gate, because the gate faces the gate into these mechanical area faces South Street. And then they had some discussion. Well, maybe you could put the gate off to the side so you can do more attractive landscaping. The point is that has nothing to do with the scenic vista value that had. It's completely gone. It's completely decimated. So
Wow.
I just wanted to share that.
Are we still on television?
Say that again?
Are we still being recorded?
RCTV is still here. Yeah.
What?
RCTV is still here.
Okay, so I won't say anything more.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so the reading is already closed. So unless anybody else has anything else to add, we're done.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah. Everybody, thank you by the way for accommodating this meeting. I think it worked out as best as it could.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Good luck with whoever you're rooting for in the election. We should know by our next meeting.
Okay, 1 second though, before you go.
Have a good night.
Okay, hang on a second. Hang on. Go ahead, Amelia.
Can you just repeat for me what the problem was with Franklin's bill? He needs to resubmit his second invoice.
Yeah. The original, the cost for all of his work was $4,000, and that's what the bill said. But he wanted to be paid $2,000 up front before he started the work, although he recognized that he was going to start it before he actually got the payment. So I asked Jack to make the payment of the $2,000, which he did on October 15th. So we only owe Franklin $2,000. So when I communicated with Franklin when he finished the work that we've made the payment of the $2,000, let me know when you receive it. And I kept asking him every couple of days, and he kept saying, I haven't got it. And he sent me an invoice the other day, and he said in his letter to me, I was waiting to receive the first $2,000 so that I could only invoice you for $2,000, but I haven't received the first $2,000, so I'm sending you an invoice for $4,000. Jack is saying he can't go to the town with that because the town's going to say we don't owe $4,000, we owe $2,000.
Okay.
That was, Amelia, that discussion was after the meeting.
We lost you, Jack.
No, he said that was after we said the meeting was over.
That discussion.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
That was an aside after the meeting was over. It shouldn't be part of the minutes.
Yeah, that doesn't need to be put in the minutes. You're right. You're right. Okay, Amelia, any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And have a good night.
Yes, bye.
Good night.
See you in a few weeks.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Get the